I don't think people realize this, but being a academic, being a researcher really makes you deeply insecure about who you are and what you actually can do and what you accomplish. And I see it all the time, and I feel it like deeply profoundly with myself. Um, but I also see it all the time in different dimensions and how it sort of manifests and what it actually looks like, right? And so we have this sort of notion. I was thinking about this idea of, so we have this view, right? So I'm Professor de Massac. I'm an associate professor of innovation and strategy, and the thing I study is a lot of behavioral stuff. And I was sort of looking at this interesting set of literatures today about what do we do when we experience success and failure? First of all, like, how do we interpret the world around us in terms of success and failure? And then from there, how do we interpret this and make sense of it? Of what do we do as, do we use this as sort of self enhancement or impression management, or, ignore the sort of surroundings around us? Like all these kind of things that we end up doing. And a lot of it, um, you know, is how we sort of comprehend um, our security about the world, right? And it's not necessarily like a sense of, like, I don't know. I just think that there's something about what we do that makes us very insecure, and I think the idea of um, what we actually do, where so our my field is particularly bad with this, is that you perform something and you work really hard at something, and then you don't get any feedback from this thing, or you don't get any outcomes from this thing. So what I'm saying is, we work really, really hard on writing papers and stuff, and many of us actually never get research published. um, you know the people that are actually doing this on a regular basis will tell you that it's extremely difficult, particularly in my field, to get anything published, right? And it takes a long time. We have probably sort of overlap with what happens in some sociology and economics fields, right? There's the tendency is definitely taking a lot longer to publish something, and to work at something, than sort of in other fields that it has this sort of rapid turnaround thing. And as a consequence, it's interesting in terms of the manifestation of what that actually means, right? So I see in, in other fields, it tends to be there tends to be like a correlation with like strong confidence in who people are, right, and what they do, and all those kind of things. But in the field that I'm in, um, there seems to be a lot more insecurity. Maybe that is true of all fields, right? And how it manifests and what we sort of think about and what we do. But, there is a lot of people not being able to figure things out and what to do. What does this actually mean? I don't know how to do this. There's a great deal of these kind of emotions, all these kind of like other things that come into play that define who we are. And as I have developed as an academic, and I'm still pretty new to this, although I've probably been doing this a little longer than some people now. I'm becoming more and more insecure and more, I don't know who I am as I develop and grow. And it's a kind of a weird, counterintuitive thing. As I would have thought, as an academic, as somebody that studies the world, I would become more deeply profound in terms of how I understand the world, right? And I become more secure. But it's the absolute complete opposite, where I feel, I personally feel that I don't know what I'm doing, that I'm grappling at straws, I can't figure things out. And it's a really interesting thing, right? Like you would think that as you do this, um, you would gain some insight and security, right? Like it's completely opposite of what I would ever think would happen, and particularly if you sort of think about, as you gain competence in another area, or what the sort of idea is as you gain competence, you become, more secure in what you actually do. And the reason is you're repeating the same actions over and over and over again. And those same actions lead you to sort of believe and understand the world a little bit more, right? This is sort of standard learning model. But, for me, in my experience, in what I'm doing, and in the exploration of the world around me, is I'm becoming deeply insecure. And I don't know heads or tails. I've gotten to the point where I no longer think I know anything, and I don't understand much in any sort of way. Like not even the extent of a particular field of what I actually know, but like how to actually perform the thing that I actually do, to perform, academic research. Um, I really don't know. I don't understand it, and I haven't learned anything. That's the interesting thing. The thing that I had learned is I haven't really learned anything, and I haven't, um, I feel like I haven't really grown. In fact, I've probably become more disillusioned, more uncertain, all these kind of other things that one would speculate would be the complete opposite. Um, so I don't know if that's other people's experience and how they feel and deal with things, but that was a profound sort of moment when I started doing this. Like, man, I don't know anything. But now it's even more so where I am just baffled, like absolutely baffled in terms of how to do this, what to do. Um, I don't know, right? Like, there is no recipe in any sort of way of how to do anything. Um, in the fields, in at least in my field, it's the only thing I could really think about, right? Is that there's no recipe. I can't have any clear cut in how to do something, and I've grown just completely baffled in what it means to be an academic researcher. I was far more confident in my identity than what I am today, and I am really insecure about it. I don't know who I am. And I think that's a really profound insight that I think is pretty generalizable across people, that sort of stick with this and sort of do the things that I do. Um, there's probably I could say actually there's bifurcation of sort of two results. One of them is that people understand the game very well and they play the game very well, and they sort of get strong amounts of confidence and they think that they sort of dominate the world and all that kind of stuff. But then there is probably the majority, um, of the rest of us that I don't know. We just are just baffled, and there's no clear cut connection between what you do and what you actually get out. And this is a super interesting result that I would never think would happen. I've studied learning for many years, and I would never think that that would actually happen. That you just become disillusioned, disconnected in so many different ways. And I don't think that this is unusual. In fact, you know, to some degree, we started picking up House, watching House, the TV series, and there's some underlining tones of that. And you could see with the main character House, where he's checked out in a lot of ways, and the reason is that he's doing his job extremely well, and it doesn't sort of click with the rest of the demands of the hospital, or how they view how it actually works, and it's different, right? Like discovery and search is far different than what people sort of view it as. It's very much this sort of personal endeavor where you just have like these kind of weird random clicks in your head, and then you have to sort of figure out how to execute on this thing, and it's super hard to do. Um, and I've said this so many times, the only predictor in terms of figuring this out is just doing it again, getting up, banging your head against the wall, um, and hopefully something gets through that sort of cheese grater or the Swiss cheese. Right there's this idea of the Swiss cheese model in safety, and understanding how safety critical systems work. In that if you have layers of Swiss cheese, nothing can get through. Individual layers, something can get through that, a problem can get through. But layers of Swiss cheese, it's hard to get through, and it prevents most things. And that's the way that I sort of view our efforts and what we actually do is, for the most part, you're not going to get through. It's going to be blocked. It's going to be pushed back, and then the odd thing, for whatever happenstance, chance thing that happens, you get through. And there's no rhyme or reason why that actually happens. And the only thing that sort of that is the predictor is just throwing things at the Swiss cheese to get through to the other side. That's it. So that's all I wanted to say, is that it's interesting in that the results of becoming an expert is complete opposite what you'd expect, how an expert would act and feel. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.